Listen, the officiating has been and seems to always be a major topic of discussion, especially in the playoffs. But yeah, after seeing this brutal call over in Boston last night, where at best it should have been offsetting penalties, I figured surely that's the worst we're going to see today, right? Wrong. I was wrong. The Oilers-Canucks game was a whole other level. Now, being neutral, I personally thought the refs just sucked overall in this game. I'm not suggesting they were in favor of one team or the other, although I do think this was the most egregious example. In what was a 2-2 hockey game, McDavid got away with a blatant high stick on Hughes. Captain on captain, as Hughes not only was cut on the play, are you bleeding? Which should have been a double minor, the Norris candidate was then forced to leave the ice because, get this, he was bleeding. You almost can't make it up. Having said that, games like this have to be tough to officiate. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it. There's so much going on, lots to manage, but I did want to make a video with a heavy focus on all the penalties and missed penalties that happened in this game. So let's get to it. Now, on Kane's first shift, he is clearly tripped up by Zadorov here. Both guys, I think, almost expected a call, but Big Z got away with one, which, all right. But just 2 minutes later, and this time Zadorov on the receiving end got tripped, and this time they do call it. So almost immediately there was inconsistency, and of course, Miller with the no-look to Pettersson, and they scored. A beautiful pass, by the way, as Pettersson would get his first of the playoffs. But not even 3 minutes later, and a huge hit behind the net would go uncalled. Now, if it's a penalty or not, I'm not even going to say. What I do know is Canucks fans were upset. So just put a pin in it for a second because we'll get back to it. For now, though, shortly after, Miller batted the stick out of Ekholm's hands. Now, unfortunately, the camera's cut away, so I don't have footage, but another missed call. Where they did get the right call, though, was right after, as Myers called for the hook on Hyman to put the Oilers up a man. And it's Draisaitl to McDavid back, and they score. A little give and go, as these two just make it look way too easy, as the Oilers come back to square it up. And that then gets us to this. Myers and Janmark along the boards, as Myers is the one that stays down, but taking a closer look, I mean, this is, in my opinion, another missed boarding call, which gets us back to this hit earlier on Pettersson. Both of these went uncalled, so I think it's kind of fair to just call it even, but you guys can let me know your thoughts down below. But let's move on. With 3 to go, the Oilers would get called for the second time in the game. Nugent-Hopkins again, this time called for holding, and while this one would get called by the Oilers after a couple of broken sticks from Vancouver, on the other end, it's Ekholm, a huge stop and a scramble, but in the midst of it all, yeah, you guessed it, another missed call. It's Hyman in front, who definitely does get a stick to the face. It's Zadorov again, who again gets away with one to end the period. Yeah. That's just the end of the first. So let's head over to the second, where not a minute in and it's another penalty. Holander clearly in some pain, so what happened? Well, let's take a look. Battle along the boards, and boom, a nut shot from Ryan, as that is dirty as it gets. But wait a second, why is Holander in the box? Even Tocchet's like, what did he do? Well, let's see, because after their battle, we don't have a penalty. Then, as Ryan spears Holander, now we get a penalty. So why do we have a 4-on-4? I guess for this, I don't know, but regardless, right off of the face-off, they would score anyway. Soucy with the shot and Besser with the redirect to beat Skinner and quickly take a 2-1 lead. Then immediately after, I think you could argue McDavid was interfered with here, which went uncalled, but it didn't matter either, as Draisaitl to the front and Ekholm scores. A quick response to come right back and make it a squared-up hockey game once again. Then we would get Suter here swiping at the puck, goes over the glass, and a scrum broke out as temperatures had been rising all game. But out of it all, it was Soucy and Draisaitl getting offsetting roughing penalties, but with the puck going over the glass, it was also called delay of game, which meant the Oilers now went back to work on the power play. A power play that lasted 24 seconds. Because it's another call, Hyman a quick grab of Myers' stick, which is then where this happened. Hughes down, no call, and after a whistle, are you bleeding? Like, dude, now you see it? But yeah, McDavid with a clear high stick on Hughes, blatant infraction. The puck's right there. I mean, it's nothing but a flat-out terrible missed call. And instead of huddling up and getting it right, adding insult to injury with Hughes bleeding, Sutherland forces Hughes to leave the ice. So not only do they miss the call, a clear double minor, their Norris candidate D-man now has to get off of the ice. That's bullshit. Indeed, Hughes, indeed. Shortly after, with 3 to go now, it's Sheloff's behind the net, caught up with Hyman as it was mayhem, and I could see how you call an interference penalty here on Sheloff's. Heading the other way, though, it's Zadorov from down low, and he scores. What a shot, beating Skinner with a snipe as the Canucks would take the lead. Whether you think this was a penalty or not, what was definitely a missed call was the too many men. So, again, who was really getting the upper hand here? What I do know is that it was just flat out poor officiating. Then to end the period, we got one here, another one in the corner, which this one does get called, Suter for interference to put the Oilers up a man again. And immediately after, maybe another missed call? McDavid catching Zadorov, but Zadorov is skating backwards into him, so I don't know. I can see why this doesn't get called. But yeah, that was a very busy second period for the officials, which now gets us into the third period, where still on the power play, it's McDavid ripping one off the pipe as the Oilers pressed, but ultimately could not put one in. Shortly after, it's Hughes in the corner, rocked by Kane, and taking a closer look, I don't know. Is that a slew foot? Hughes definitely turns to his left as Kane hits him, so I can see both arguments, but either way, naturally, just a minute later, it's McDavid in alone, and he scores. Yikes. McDavid with the silky mitts to make it a 3-3 hockey game, tying it up again, and it's his third game of the playoffs with 3 points or more. So I could see how you could argue with that high stick earlier and now this potential slew foot that it's two major calls that definitely hurt the Canucks. And while the third was now tightly contested with big chances on both ends, in the final 5 now, and it's the Oilers with heavy pressure as somehow the puck stays out of the net. But here, after the whistle, Foegele going at Zadorov, who went down with another no call. But here's the thing, this time it was definitely embellished by Zadorov. So either you call both or you call nothing. So again, I can see why this doesn't get called. And with that, regulation would come to an end, which meant we now had ourselves overtime, where it was just 5 minutes in, Bouchard coming down, shot, and they score. To even up the series in heartbreaking fashion, it's Ian Cole redirecting it right into his own net as the Oilers come out of Vancouver with a 1-1 tied series heading back to Edmonton. But yeah, this video again is mostly about officiating, and without a doubt, this game had some brutal calls and no calls. My position is that they went both ways. The Canucks did probably get the worst end of it, but you guys let me know your thoughts down below. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. As always, I appreciate it very much, and I'll see you in the next one.